legendary Union singer, rat rhythm guitarist, and former Motley Crue singer John Corabi hit the nail on the head from day one. Before Carmine Appice came out after he spoke to Mick Mars, well before Mick Mars' lawsuit, before anybody anywhere said anything, John Corabi, Crabby as he's known, had his finger on the rock pulse. He knew from the 6 years he'd been in Motley, from the years of knowing Mick, he knew that something wasn't right. Mick was not the kind of guy to just quit the band, to just sail off into the sunset. John believed that Mick was maybe forced out of the band. Maybe the guys, Nikki, Vince, and Tommy, were speaking for the guitar player, but that was not how the guitar player truly felt. How he knew this, I don't know. He even said he hadn't spoken to Mick, but he knew. He just knew that something wasn't right, and he couldn't have been more right. He couldn't have been more right. Because maybe they didn't fire him, but by going back on those contracts, the same contracts that stopped Mick from proceeding with the solo project with that amazing track that John had lead vocals on, because that's the kind of guy that Mick is. He honored that contract. He put a kibosh on that solo project. Because even though John wasn't a party to the contract, he was a former Crue member, so Mick stopped it. And then they go back on the contract. They do another bunch of tours. Then he tells them, look, I can't keep touring. I'm in agony. But I'll do these last 12 stadium tours, these last 12 stadium shows. And they're like, okay. And what do as they approach the middle? They add 24 more. So they maybe didn't fire him, but they made it as to where he had to quit. They forced him out. A case can be made for the fact that they forced him out. Then they say that he's not going to be a touring member, but that he'll always be a member, and that he might sing again. And then 3 months later, they say, if you don't play, you're not a member. You don't get your 25% share. You get 5. You get 1/5 of what we said 3 months ago you were going to get. But if you complain, we'll give you 7.5, but only if you sign the severance contract. So the reality of the matter is, John Corabi hit the nail on the head about a lot of things. He was right about a lot of things. And I feel that, he contributed a great deal of analysis to the situation. And I feel that Carmine, by speaking to Mick, added to that analysis. But ultimately, it took Mick filing a lawsuit. It took Mick standing up for himself to hopefully change the trajectory. Because if Mick did not stand up now, who's to say that in a year or two, he wouldn't even have the measly 5% that they're offering him now. These guys tend to go back on their contracts, go back on their words, have amnesia about things that they promised. I mean, Motley Crue, again, no disrespect to Nikki, Vince, and Tommy, and Mick, but they made a contract that they would never tour again. And I believe that Mick wanted to honor that contract, but the other 3 pressured him into doing it. I believe Mick wanted to stop after the 12 stadium shows, but those other guys forced him by pressuring him into it, to do another 24. But at some point, the man deserves a break. At some point, he has an actual condition. And you would have thought after 41 years, 42 years of service, naming the band, funding the band when they didn't have a pot to piss in, that would afford him his share without it being, reduced by, 80%. And then essentially having a gun put to your head, figuratively speaking, to sign a severance, or you won't even get that. And not only that, but they weren't even telling him how much they were actually making. So it might have been 5% of whatever they dreamt up. Because that's really why he's suing him. He just wants to know what they're actually making. But I got to say, Crabby, I don't know how you did it, but you were right. And I said you were right, not even knowing what it is that you were saying, because you didn't know exactly what happened. You just knew something was not right. And I agreed with you. Mick Mars is not a quitter. This is a guy that has never left the band. He's never been fired. He's never quit. He's never had a solo project. To my knowledge, he's never been in a supergroup either. He's never done anything that's not Motley Crue. And if he has, he's done something that is entirely endorsed by the band and by the band's management. This guy's a team player to the core. And after 4 decades, they're ready to screw him over.